Stacy and Joshua Hunsucker were high school sweethearts who married in 2010. The Hunsuckers were described as a cute couple who didn't appear to argue. But as any marriage does over a decade of being together, the couple experienced some hardships. Stacy would give birth to the couple's first daughter, Piper, but instead of celebrating, Stacy would begin to experience unspecified medical problems. A year later, more tragedy would strike when the Hunsuckers' home would catch on fire, destroying several of their belongings. Stacy would give birth to the couple's second daughter, Willow. Just like the first daughter, Stacy would experience health problems with low blood pressure and a low heart rate, causing her to be hospitalized. It wouldn't be until a couple months after that hospitalization, Stacy would be hospitalized yet again, and she would have a pacemaker implanted. On September 23rd of 2018, 911 dispatchers would receive a 911 phone call from Joshua Hunsucker. He would explain that he heard that their neighborhood had a rash of car thefts, so he went to check to make sure that their cars were locked. Upon returning to his house, he would find his wife, Stacy Hunsucker, not breathing and blue. Stacy Hunsucker would be pronounced dead of an apparent heart attack, and the reason why it was apparent was because Joshua refused to allow the coroner to do an autopsy on Stacy. Instead, he would have Stacy immediately cremated, and then he would file a $250,000 claim to her life insurance. This would happen a mere days after Stacy's death. Investigators would discover that Josh had given different stories about his whereabouts before finding his wife unconscious. Joshua would tell one friend that he was walking to burn off some energy before the discovery of Stacy. Another of Joshua's friends would be told that he was cutting wood before the discovery. Susie Robinson would tell the investigators that she was told by Joshua that he was working on the computer with his back towards Stacy, and he turned around and noticed that Stacy was slumped over on the side of the couch. Investigators would discover that Stacy was an organ donor, and as a result, were able to obtain a search warrant for a vial of Stacy's blood that was taken after her death and kept by the organ donor lab. Investigators would analyze the blood, and the results would show elevated levels of tetrohydroline, which is an ingredient found in eye drops that can cause a heart attack. Investigators would talk to Joshua's friends and family and found out that Joshua would tell two coworkers that if he ever killed somebody, he would use eye drops. Friends would also say that Joshua seemed unaffected. He had a new girlfriend, and on top of that, he had this girl move into the same house that he once shared with his late wife. Joshua Hunsucker was charged with first-degree murder and insurance fraud. Joshua would be released after paying a $1.5 million bond with conditions that he wears an ankle monitor and remains on a curfew. Authorities would officially change Stacy Hunsucker's death certificate from heart attack to homicide. Joshua would then allegedly set fire to a syringe pump while on a helicopter, which caused the pilot to force land the aircraft. He would be arrested for damaging property and bonded out while he was already on bond for Stacy Hunsucker's death. Stacy's parents, now that the death certificate had been changed, filed a wrongful death suit against Joshua, along with seeking full custody of both their grandchildren. This did not sit well with Joshua, and it caused his relationship with his late wife's parents to become tense. Joshua is accused of engaging in a pattern of harassment against the Robinsons, threatening them and attempting to intimidate them. Some of the things that Joshua is accused of is sending a package to the Robinsons' house demanding that they drop the charges against him. Another one is following the Robinsons and filming them in public. Lastly, Joshua is accused of making vulgar gestures to the Robinsons in a church parking lot that they attend. According to investigators, Joshua committed most of these acts in the presence of his two children. Joshua contacted the authorities and reported that he stopped to change a flat tire and was pistol whipped in the head multiple times. Joshua claimed that his hands were then zip-tied and he was injected with an unknown substance. Joshua would then state that his attacker was John Robinson, but police found zero evidence to support his claim. Investigators believe that the reason why Joshua made the story up was in order to shift the responsibility of Stacy's death from him to the Robinsons. A mere 20 days after the alleged roadside incident, Piper Hunsucker would be hospitalized. Her symptoms would include low blood pressure, low heart rate, sleepiness, extreme exhaustion, and constricted blood vessels. A urine sample would be taken from Piper, and it would reveal that the same drug that is found inside eye drops was found inside her system. There was an antidepressant drug that was found inside her system that is not approved for children. And when investigators did a search of Joshua's car, they would find the same antidepressant drug. This would lead the judge to determine that Joshua was in fact neglecting his children. Investigators would discover that Joshua had told medical officials that it appeared that Piper had been given eye drops. The reason why medical officials found this super weird was because due to Piper's symptoms, the conclusion just wasn't reasonable for them. Investigators believe that the reasoning for this is he wanted to implicate Stacy's parents in Stacy's death in order to remove them from his daughter's lives. The prosecution believed that Joshua Hunsucker poisoned Stacy Hunsucker over a long period of time by putting eye drops inside of her drinks, and then tried to poison Piper Hunsucker, his oldest daughter, by putting the same substance that killed Stacy inside of Piper's beverages. Investigators believe that Joshua's motive was that he wanted to collect the $250,000 life insurance policy to be with his mistress. Joshua Hunsucker would then be arrested again on 4 counts of intimidation and 4 counts of obstruction of justice. The prosecution would request that Joshua's bond be revoked on his first-degree murder charge, expressing their concern for the safety of Stacy's parents and the Hunsuckers' children. The judge agreed with the prosecution and stated that Joshua would remain in jail with no bond for the new charges until the bond for the first-degree murder charge could be discussed. Joshua Hunsucker was given a public defender for his obstruction and intimidation charges. His attorney for his first-degree murder and insurance fraud charges state that the reasoning for that decision was due to Joshua's assets being frozen. He doesn't have any money to pay for another lawyer to work on those new charges. In 2022, the judge for Stacy Hunsucker's murder trial granted a gag order with an undetermined trial date. And that is the end of today's video. If you liked today's video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, be safe, Earthlings. Peace out.